Thanks for inviting me here. We have quite an interesting topic in the buzzword in this particular digital scenario, AI, ML solutions, chatbots. And with respect to performance, it makes even more important for us to discuss what are the opportunities available in the market. And here we have amazing panelist belongs to fintech and food tech solution. And these guys have always got advantage over others because tech is integral part of their DNA. So I would like to introduce Richa. Welcome, Richa. Richa Khera works at KFC as head of digital. Welcome, Richa. Then another panelist we have is Ishan. So Ishan works with KreditBee as chief marketing officer.
Yeah, hi, Shashank. Thank you for the introduction.
Then our next panelist is Abhishek from Bharat. Again, Abhishek is working with Bharat as Chief Marketing Officer. Welcome, Abhishek.
Hey, Shashank.
Then our final panelist is Sachin from Paisabazaar. So Sachin works at Paisabazaar as a head of digital transformation. And I'm sure when we hear head of digital transformation, you'll talk about all AI/ML solutions, all technologies which you're using to drive performance. Cool. Now I'm so happy to have you all here. Let's start with a common question for you all, which is how do you describe role of emotional connect within performance function, considering performance marketing as a function, as a notion to be considered as a transactional medium where you put certain cost and you get certain results. So how do you define, how do you describe role of emotional connect within performance marketing?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Shashank. So I think, see, primarily whenever we talk about any form of marketing, be it performance marketing, be it brand marketing, be it even product marketing for that matter, it's very essential for any marketer or any entity for that matter to create that level of human emotional connect, right? So even when we go back to the fundamentals of marketing, we always believe that the emotional value proposition is something that should come out first prior to the even the functional value proposition, right? So even in the gamut of performance marketing, I think the idea is that today as a consumer, as an end consumer, when I open any platform or any ad timeline, so to say, so I see so many different advertisements in front of me, right, which are being targeted to me. So now how does an ad stand out, right? So it's very essential that even the basic elements of creatives, the headlines, the text that we are using are able to create some level of personalized emotional connect where I feel like engaging with the advertisement. I think that's the biggest win for any ad copy or for any performance marketer. So I think, yes, performance marketing does require a certain amount of emotional connect to be created with the end consumer, and I think there is paramount evidence for that.
So personalization is important. That's what you're saying. Yeah. Richa, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah. So Shashank, actually, the emotional connect is a very, very critical one, and almost 75% of our buying decisions are typically based on emotion. Even if you were to look back and consider what you bought in the last couple of weeks, even if it was a grocery item, I'm sure something caught your fancy, something struck a chord, and of course, we've been buying a lot of grocery, but we've also been buying a lot of newer stuff that we probably haven't bought before, right? So what is it that is compelling you to buy something? It's nothing but the emotional connect that you have, either with the product or the brand. So I also want to add another dimension to this, which is basically that which is the consumer, right? And the consumer certainly doesn't know that this is a brand ad or a performance ad. Now, these are terms that marketers can use, right? For the average Joe, it's just an ad. It's a touch point that the consumer is experiencing you on. So what you're optimizing for is literally like a function of what the consumer is seeing. So it's a simple brand interaction, and how would you make it stand out? And if it's only the story which resonates with the people, and hence your bottom funnel metrics will only fire once there is a strong emotional connect. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, so often marketers get confused between performance ad and branding ads, and performance budgets and branding budgets. But at the end of the day, this is any communication for a user. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Abhishek. So how you wanna comment on this particular
Right.
point?
So, as rightly mentioned by Richa and Ishan, if we are able to establish that connect, be it being in the moment, being triggering some sort of an emotion through storytelling or uh, through an emotional copy creative, if it's personalized, there's nothing like it. I mean, uh, every performance marketer must have seen his CTR or her CTR going up if they are personalizing it, if they are being in the moment, and if they are triggering some sort of emotion, be it happy, I'll just give you an example of COVID-19. What we saw in our numbers was when we started our ads with copies like "Stay safe from coronavirus" and start accepting digital payments using Bharat Pay.
It's specifically this is very important because
We saw our CTRs growing very, very high versus the normal ad where we were just sharing a normal communication where we were just asking them with a functional copy versus a copy which was emotional, which was in the moment, which was uh, I mean, fear is also an emotion. It's one of the strongest one. So when we started hitting on that, we started seeing jump in CTRs, conversions, and of course, organic also shot up high, and we saw CPAs getting really low in paid as well. So yeah, both it works on top funnel metrics, it works on the lower funnel metrics, and people remembers us, and they are able to connect Bharat Pay with safety, which was one of the key drivers for the remaining monetization metrics of things.
yeah, in fact, in your scheme of things, merchant plays an important role, specifically in tier two, tier three market, where the traditional marketing is quite heavy. So obviously, digital will play a very important role with certain emotional connect in your communication in order to drive performance. So yeah, Sachin. What is your point of view
Uh,
on this?
Shashank, I feel that in this age of ROI, chasing ROI, data analysis, using technology and everything, sometimes we marketer overlook the power of storytelling. The importance of communication, and
Mhm.
be it digital media or traditional media or any sort of media. While we are trying to optimize media and touch points, the most powerful thing which can create an immediate emotional connect with the consumer, be it a brand or for a product, is what you are saying and how you are saying it. So like KFC, the finger licking good statement, be it at it's on TV or newspaper, there is a coherence in the communication which tells the user that okay, what I'm getting into it. What we do, in this age of technology and all, chasing CTRs, while we may get a user click on a particular ad, the final buying decision will only happen when there is an emotional connect, and sometimes
Sure.
we overlook that. And I think that's the tussle between a traditional marketer and a performance marketer. While we misunderstood this term, performance marketing, while it should be being there at the right time in front of the customer when he is in market for a particular thing, it does not say that if you are a performance marketer you undermine the overall power of communication and storytelling. It has
Sure.
to be there.
So based on my experience, the real value of communication only a performance guy can understand because that individual will have to derive numbers and that guy will have to evaluate all those creatives. So Richa, so you work with very interesting category of QSR and food tech. The entire category is driven by moments. The entire category is driven by brand love. I'm sure emotional connect is very important in this category. So, what all solution do you have implemented in your marketing activation journey to derive that emotional connect?
Sure. So Shashank, you rightly said, it's a category which is a very impulsive one. There's enough brand love for the brand. Now the thing is that it's a very powerful thing, and of course, brands definitely need to build more ways to connect with consumers. Now, and consumers love brands which act in a more human and in a more personal way, right? That's something that strikes a chord. Now, every time you get a push notification or any kind of communication that you see, only when you uh, you know only when it resonates with you is when you kind of have a deeper look at it. So, what we essentially want to do is we want to create more meaningful connects with our consumers. That's number one. So as part of this very premise itself, we actually launched our messenger chatbot. Now the objective, if you ask me, was twofold. Of course, the chatbot is something that one could use to order food, and we put our custom journeys in place. The user could actually see our specially curated menu. They could ask questions on recommendations, on launches, and the chatbot was geared up to answer all of that. Uh, we did this in a very fun, quirky way, reflecting our brand personality, all within the tonality of the conversation. Now, it's very critical that the brand builds that in, because it's also some bit of distinctiveness that you would want to build into even a bot, right? You don't want to be talking to a robot, right? So how do you do that is the real craft of it. So, as I said, we built our fun, quirky personality within the bot, even for anybody, who was asking a recommendation. The chatbot could actually tell you a joke, so we built all of that in it. So, that's an interesting way to create a meaningful connect, something which consumers will remember, and not just have a transactional relationship with you. And before we started off, we actually gathered a lot of data from our listening system to understand what exactly is the chatter which is going on. How do we make it more topical? So the more relevant you are in conversations, the more the connect is with the consumer. So it needn't be all cold and transactional. I think there are plenty of such touch points that can be leveraged to drive engagement and commerce at the same time. So it's just about juggling the two together. We also launched our Alexa voice ordering as a small pilot. Now, consumers also see technology as a very cool thing to be connected with, right? That's one of the cooler things to do. So
Yeah.
also it's contemporary. It drives a lot of brand relevance. In addition to the commerce aspect that one is trying to drive. So all in all, I think it's a good balance that one needs to strike between both the objectives.
But one question, whenever you incorporate such fancy stuff in your marketing activation, how do you justify cost of implementation? Because obviously within performance marketing, there will be a question always which we have to answer, that what are the what kind of returns we are getting out of this particular solution. There are certain softer metrics, there are certain hard metrics. So how do you justify that?
Sure. So see, a lot of it has to do with sales driving activities. A lot of it also has to go back to brand driving activities. How much, how is your top of mind increasing? What are your imagery parameters? How are they changing over time? What is the salience on the brand? Because see, we're a highly impulsive category, right? And we need to be top of mind a lot more times than a seasonal purchase, right? So food is something that, of course, people love. And in regular times, people were typically looking for new places to go out. Like every week, you would make a decision. Okay, where do I go next? So the category demands that we be very, very top of mind, be very, very salient, and hence those are some of the parameters that we also track.
Sure. So let's move on to the next question, Ishan. This is for you. Uh, how you're considering fintech vertical? You always get a first mover advantage. All those technology which is coming in the market, it's actually launched by all fintech players. How do you see what kind of role AI ML will play in fintech vertical? What are the opportunities do you see within AI ML solution or market solutions? How you're leveraging those solutions?
Right. So Shashank, see, typically when we talk about fintech or financial lending, so to say, so there are three major life cycle stages that we have across the entire journey, right, for the consumer. One is the origination of the loan, where which includes the loan application, the KYC, form filling, online and offline, right? Then there is the loan disbursement, where the money actually hits the account of the end consumer, and finally it's the repayment, where the person comes and repays the loan amount, and either at a single shot or in different in various EMIs. Now, the beauty of today's age of data and information is that if we are able to leverage that in the right manner, because I mean, when we talk about fintech, there is a lot of data that we have about the end users once they come onto our platform, right? So now the way we use the data is typically the deciding point as to how much personalized can we make this entire journey for the user. So let's start from the origination standpoint. So when we talk about performance marketing, right, typically on the acquisition side, where we are trying to reach out to the consumers, educate them about our platform, and bring them onto our platform. So it makes a lot of sense to put out use cases that are more personalized and relevant to them. I think something that we discussed in the previous part of the discussion also, and specifically from a fintech lending standpoint, traditionally bureau scores, be it your CIBIL, Experian, CRIF, so on and so forth. So these are the scores that a lot of entities want to target the consumers on. Now the beauty is that most of the targeting channels that we have, be it your Google or Facebook or all the ad networks that we use, don't allow you to target specifically on bureau scores because they cannot pull the bureau score of the end consumer. Right. So now what we do is that we are able to identify pseudo parameters which basically act as a as I said, a pseudo indicator of the bureau score or the credit worthiness of the consumer, so to say. So for example, let's say we identify that people who come from a specific profession, specific, let's say, education background, specific geography, are people who have a higher bureau score in general compared to the others, right? So that is something we identify from our CRM or from our DB, right? So that particular data that we have on our CRM and DB acts as a feedback into our performance marketing campaigns, where we know that if we have to go for a certain credit-worthy set of customers, we would typically, even though we don't have the bureau targeting, we'll be able to target them on various other parameters that make sense to this particular a variable, so to say, right? So that is on the origination side. Next, we talk about, let's say, funnel movement, or let's say remarketing or retargeting, right? Now, once a consumer comes onto our platform, we have multiple, data points or multiple behavioral patterns about the user. So let's say we know that certain set of users engage on our platform, 5 times in a week. Certain other set of users engage only once in a week, right? Then certain people are more susceptible to offers that we are putting out on our platforms, or they're clicking on the banners more often on our platform, right? So these kind of data points are available on our platform on the engagement, on the app engagement side, and we can automate flows around it, identifying that which of these consumers are more valuable to us with respect to the lifetime value, or with respect to the prepayment behavior, so to say, right? So once we look at these behavioral patterns, again going back to the data that we have, and putting a layer of AI/ML on top of it, where the data, the algorithm learns by itself, we are able to identify how we can make the funnel movement much more optimized and relevant and personalized for each and every consumer, depending on how each consumer behaves in a particular cohort and how a particular cohort behaves, right? So that also helps you even move the consumers forward that you have acquired. The last piece, which is the repayment, so over there as well, we can look at things like, okay, there are certain cohorts that respond to vernaculars better. There are certain cohorts which respond to certain kind of channels better. So again, when we look at these kind of data points, we can actually improve not just the consumer experience, but also our repayment metrics, so to say, by personalizing the communication. So net, I think if we are able to look at the data in an intelligent manner and marry it to the different behavioral patterns that people show based on the data that we have, and customize our communication across the life cycle to the consumers, I think it plays an immensely important role with respect to the consumer journey as well as the business metrics.
Correct. So absolutely correct, bang on. There was a time when performance marketing was limited towards CPL, CPS, CPAs, cost per download, cost per install. Now we actually look at the entire life cycle of that particular consumer, and that too on a different platform. So there's external platform like Facebook, there's a different platform like CRM. How do you integrate all those platforms to minimize wastage? How do you integrate all those things? It's a great Abhishek, I have a specific question for you. So if you talk about performance marketing specifically, so there are two success metrics. One is scale, and the other one is efficiency. We often get confused between the two, or maybe we are unable to reach to a threshold. What is the optimum threshold we can follow for scale? And I, personally, as in part of agency, I've always heard from the client that there's unlimited budget till the time you're maintaining ROS. But
Absolutely.
it gets very difficult to identify what is that threshold. So
Right.
how do you evaluate that, and what kind of role emotional connect can play here to improve either one of the two or both?
Right. Right. So this has been one of the classical questions in marketing, especially
Hello?
between agency and clients, that about maintaining the balance between scale and efficiency. So there are adequate amount of levers that are available in AI platforms that we are all using these days, by setting up targeted CPA campaigns, or by maintaining a balance between the realistic targets and accepting the scale that we get at that particular efficiency. So, I mean, and we can then solve this puzzle by negating the overlapping audience wherever a channel, negating a channel is possible. And AI, with the AI now, we can actually use emotional intelligence and add that additional scale in a short span of time. I mean, for just for an example now, like Ishan earlier mentioned about movement marketing, maybe I really like the example how Paytm leveraged it with Patal Lok, the new Amazon Prime series that launched a couple of weeks back, and attracted audience and built its own funnel after that. So with such campaign, the objective needs to be clear, and then if we know what we want to achieve out of that, we can actually maintain that efficiency and cost and efficiency balance in a much better way. So and also moving towards AI and ML solutions, there, somehow we are also trading off or killing the creative scope that used to be there in early days. Now there are not much human expertise that is involved here, other than deciding on what needs to be communicated, and the bidding strategy, and the price that you are okay to pay for it, and rest everything is decided by the algorithm itself, be it Facebook recommending you where to place your ads, or be it the Google app campaigns or UAC campaigns in early days, recommending you what all assets to be added on the platforms, and then they'll automatically decide and pick up the best networks where you have the maximum probability to find an audience that will convert to your end goal. Could be anything, like Ishan said. Probably the lower funnel goals that we can now efficiently focus upon using these solutions, and the first party data that Richa talked about earlier. So I used to really love the early days when we used to run separate campaigns and use our own emotional intelligence to bring that
Mm,
scale and efficiency. But with
mm.
these automation tools coming in, and the third party data levers that can be added to both Facebook and Google, or the DV360 solutions that really help us scaling with efficiency. So
Yeah.
so
So
in my,
I've got
sorry,
one
go ahead.
interesting question from the audience. The question is, are we in a position to actually rely completely on algorithms? How much time your chatbot will take to adapt themselves? Uh, uh, what kind of technologies which are available? Can we replace humans with machines?
Right. So how I see it, I see both as a boon and as well as a bane, because till the system completes its learning curve. Usually, it's a bell-shaped curves that the system goes through, and the system figures out the way to run your campaigns in to serve your campaigns to the right audience. You will get good results. But the moment, I mean, you have to bear with it. So you have to bear with the system to finish its learning curve. Which is good for the always on campaign. So if you have, for example, if you run an app install campaign, which is sort of an always on campaign, okay, the system will work really efficiently. But the moment you turn to short-term campaigns, that if you want to run some offer on some other campaigns, then the learning will cost you some bucks. And if you are ready to shell out those, probably you are good to go. If not, there are other platforms or other mediums or channels that can probably get you better results out of it. So, in my opinion, manual optimization was better in a way, because we had all the levers to tweak and to know where and what goes wrong on the system. But with completely automated systems coming in, it takes a lot of digging and a lot of time to actually figure out where it has gone wrong and how we can actually give some manual input or some sort of tweaking to the campaign to do better. So there are limited levers available to tweak the campaign now versus the non-automated or the non-AI and ML platforms. But at the end of the day, it is giving us the results
Yeah.
that we all want in long term, and that's what
And
matters.
some of the line items are actually black box, where you don't know anything about your campaign, where exactly my ads are running, what kind of
Correct.
communication is there going out. So extension to this particular question, I have something similar question to ask from Sachin. So while everyone talk all positive things about AI ML solution, chatbots, all machine learning solution, marketing automation, but there are few things which goes out of hand when you execute those set of solution in our marketing activation. So do you agree with this statement? What is your experience with that?
Yeah, Shashank, like Abhishek rightly said, that sometimes there are challenges. There's a learning curve through which all these AI and ML solution have to go through. So
Mhm.
the one thing which you have to let go as a marketer is the control of your campaign.
Mhm.
Sometimes long-term campaigns, AI ML systems presently are very good for those. You give them a goal, you give them an objective, and let them optimize your campaign towards that goal. You fix a target CPA, you fix a target CPM, or maybe a cost per event. Tell them what the event is, and let the algorithm optimize your campaign for that. Uh, they're good for that, but sometimes there are tactical campaigns, or sometimes there are tactical shifts in your approach. You want to maybe change the objective for a short while. You maybe change the cost per result for a short while. You maybe just increase it, or maybe want to reduce it. This is the decision you have taken. Once you do that, the algorithm goes into the learning mode again, and then it will take some time. So that is the challenge. So to put up with these sort of things, you need immense level of patience. If
Yeah.
as a marketer or as an organization you don't have basically, if you do not have the luxury of being patient, maybe you should not start with these sort of campaigns. Because so I'll give you an example of a UAC, a universal app campaign. If you're an company, you want more and more people to install your app, and that too at the right cost. So what you do, you just give them a bid that this is what I want my cost per app should be, and this is the event I want to optimize this campaign for. That's it. And Google will start optimizing your campaign basis different parameters. You have no say in that. You can't decide on which keyword your ad should be shown. What are the keywords you want? Maybe because we and KreditBee are partners, I don't want my ad to be shown on their brand keywords. I can't do it in a USC, and vice versa, right? So I'll just have to sit back and maybe Shan someday would call me and say, "Why are you bidding on my keyword?" And I'll say, "Dude, I can't do anything. It's Google." So
Yeah. Yeah.
these sort of things are happening. The other thing is, if something goes wrong in a campaign, as a human, you just go back to the data, you analyze it from a different angle, figure out what's wrong, and then reset it. And you have different levers through which you can just get the scale almost immediately. But if something goes wrong, because algos can also go wrong. If something goes wrong in an automated campaign, chances of an out of the box solution is negligible. Because
Yeah.
what makes us human is when we apply, and especially Indians, when we apply some sort of jugaad to make it up and running immediately, and then figure out a way to get it back on track. That can't be done in an automated campaign. So maybe it's just a price to pay for the efficiency and the scale and the convenience which we are getting from these artificial intelligence campaigns and systems.
Control is something which we crave while executing campaigns, and if
Yeah,
that control goes out, we become impatient with
yeah.
what is happening in the campaign.
So that's
So
that's what.
yeah, so one question I have for all of you, and I believe one of our audience, how do you envision a role of emotional connect, considering post-COVID situation where things will be drastically different. Now everyone will resist physical interaction, and how do you establish that emotional connect? What kind of role this particular element would play in your marketing challenge?
I think that's gonna be there in the post-COVID world, that now marketers need to be more efficient because of whatever damage COVID has done. We do not have the luxury to overspend or splurge on campaigns just to find customers. We have to be super efficient. How can we be super efficient when our customers have a connect with them? Basically, if we have returning customers, because that's the segment where the emotional connect is highest. If we have to go out and catch the new fish again and again and again, find out new customers is always gonna be expensive. And maybe probably next, especially I'm talking about BFSI, especially in coming 6 to 12 months, we might not have that luxury. So whatever customers we have, we just have to basically harness them, give them better services, wish that they'll build a connect with our brand and then come back. Even though in BFSI, because being a transactional brand, it's very difficult. You may want a burger from KFC, but you would never have a preference from where you want to take a loan. You just need a loan. So be it from
Sure,
KreditBee or early salary, you just need money whenever you want. So
yeah,
it's difficult
yeah,
in our case, but yes, we
yeah.
may.
So, sorry to cut you in between, but I think we are running short of time. So let's one statement from all of you, that how do you envision a role of emotional connect in your marketing activation? Yes, yeah, Shah.
Right, right. So I think very, very pertinent points raised by the panel on this specific bit, and I just want to add that I have a very philosophical take on this overall scenario. So once this COVID situation has come out, and it led to a couple of months of pan India lockdown. So what essentially happened is that a lot of people, got a lot of time to introspect, which we generally don't, right? So usually we are all running around and going to offices, busy with our works and our life, right? So not a lot of people got a time to sit back and really introspect and think about the human element in our lives, right? So now this lockdown has actually led a lot of people to really think through that, and that has, in effect amplified the role of emotional connect in our lives, which is something a lot of us marketers have to be very sensitive towards when we are, curating the communication. Of course, I mean, emotional connect is something that always helps you, pass on your communication and get the right, call to action, you may say, out of it. But more than that, I think it's something that has become even more prevalent right now, considering the fact that all of us have been through a phase where we all have sat back and realized how important it is. So I think that is one reason why the role of emotional connect will be even larger. Secondly, I think the role of safety and security will be very key, specifically for businesses that are offline oriented, right? Because again, there is a certain level of paranoia and insecurity that people have about the overall situation in place. So the brands that are able to communicate that layer of reliability, security, and safety to their end consumers, and I think that will play a larger role for offline brands like probably a KFC than digital brands like ours. But net, I think that is the brand communication which I feel will be very key in the coming times for any brand to survive and thrive.
Yeah, I just want
So
to
yeah,
build off that. And, very rightly you picked up. I think safety and reassurance is a large scheme of work. It's almost like how would consumers feel safe coming back to you? And with food, of course, it's even more critical. So I think emotional connect will be even more important than ever. There are two theories which are going around, and two slightly polarized opinions. So one of them is that all the conspicuous consumption will go out of the window, because people have of course thought what is truly important in life, as Ishan was also saying. While there's a different school of thought which says there's going to be enough revenge consumption because people are so sick of sitting at home. They do need to vent it out, right? So two different schools of thought, but let's see how it shapes up. What it means net is that the higher the brand connect, the higher the emotional connect, the more likelihood of the consumer coming back to you. Now, which way it kind of sways is something to be seen.
Yep, yep. And there's one tough question to answer, which is how will we recover and how much time it will take to recover? And meanwhile, what is our action plan? So yeah, Abhishek.
Right. So as a category, and especially, I mean, we could be one of the better off in during COVID as a category. So we are almost 70% back to pre-COVID because of the shops that are getting back to shops are opening now, and also the businesses has resumed. Uh, Transactions per shop that were happening before COVID versus that are happening now is going up. So getting back to normal, we are on track for it. But when it comes to the usual consumption and the usual behavior of our audiences, it might take some time because people have become a lot more skeptical now about things, uh, about the uncertainty that lies ahead. So we see that in numbers when we see on the lower funnel goals, when we see on the monetization aspect, how much money people are keeping with us as deposits, how much money they are interested to take out from the system as a loan, how confident they feel to repay those their existing loans. So we are yet to see those numbers coming back to normal. Even though the market has started opening up a bit, but when it comes to the monetization aspect and the repayment happening on schedule, these things are going to take some amount of time. I don't know by when it will be back to normal, but we are seeing a positive growth trajectory towards it.
So yes, Sachin, I think there's some one question for you. Would you like to answer?
Yeah. So basically, someone has asked that whether they should invest on AI in the beginning while they're starting out, or they should wait. So basically, the success of AI depends on two things. A, how clear you are in your objectives, what do you want to achieve out of it. The second thing is whether do you have enough data to make the learning happen. If you have inherited data from your parent company or from your earlier experiences, you may go ahead to with a AI tool, feed the data in, set the objective, and start. But if you are one of those who are starting out from very basic level, just gathering data, I'll advise, because all these DMPs and CDPs, all of these platforms are available, but having first party data is very important for the success of an AI tool, or for the success of an AI campaign, for any objective. So unless you have that first party data readily available with you, I would suggest you give it a pass.
Yes. So one common question for you all. Obviously, every day, every hour, there's a new solution in the market, and you get exposed with some of the case studies or white papers and different products by different organizations, different publishers. So how do you keep yourself updated? That's one. And while you are getting acquainted with all those solutions and technologies, how do you evaluate those solutions? What are the resources you follow? What are the portals, blogs?
Right. So I think, I mean, personally for me, what I've realized is that it sometimes gets more reactive for me. That even if I'm not like really following up a lot on what's happening and stuff, because at the end, if somebody has a good solution, more often than not, they would reach out to you with the fact that there's a very innovative solution that they have in place, or you would know that there are entities that are using it, whether it's your competitors, your collaborators, or other entities within and outside the industry. So if you keep your eyes and ears open, you would know that there is something that is happening, and people will proactively reach out to you, and you would know sooner than later. So I think that's how we typically get to know, sometimes proactively, but most of the times it's when people reach out to us. With respect to keeping myself updated, so again, I think I don't put a lot of, I mean, that's again personal to myself, so I don't put a lot of extra effort to kind of keep myself updated about everything. I think it's a part of the job itself, where if you have certain problem statements or challenges, then you try to identify what's the best possible solution, and once you start researching around it, you identify that this is what can be done. Right. So essentially, I mean, not to endorse, but ET brand equity is one snippet that I typically follow regularly. Other than that, there are certain newsletters that a lot of our collaborators and partners publish on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, and I usually skim through that. So that essentially keeps me updated. Other than that, I generally don't take a lot of initiative myself to go out and read. But yeah, this is what I think works for me.
Sure. Yeah, Richa. So what are
Yeah.
portals do you follow? Because there's
So
so
for
much to
me,
absorb.
Yeah. So for me, what actually works is that every day is almost like it's a lot of test and learn as well, right? The kind of work we do, it's very iterative, right? The learnings that you see today might not exist tomorrow, and it'll change possibly, a month down the line. So at any point in time, I'm a huge fan of running multiple sprints, testing things out parallelly, see what is working, and keep documenting, a lot of your learnings, because it kind of helps once you go back to it and you try and understand, hey, what happened if there was a certain uplift which happened, what did I do? So I'm a huge fan of running multiple sprints at any point in time. We're all for testing. We're pretty open to trying out new betas, alphas with a lot of our partners as well in the ecosystem. So I think it's a lot of test and learn as well, which goes in the entire learning process.
Sure. So yeah, Abhishek.
Right. So I use quite an old technique that still works fine for me. So what I do, I still create those Google alerts that I used to do a long back. So what you can do with that, you can just program them with some keywords that you would want to track, probably the machine learning platforms or AI platforms or latest technologies, and then it will deliver it right in your inbox. And you can skim through them, find something relevant for you to read. Just click, and then it will take you to that article for you to read, and quickly you can understand if this is something that you would want to pursue more, and then you can do an in-depth research on that.
I would say
Yeah.
I would say you're the great believer of automation because you have automated your search pattern.
Yeah, so it kind of helps. So like also Ishan said, people definitely reach out to you once they have a solution that can add value. People do reach out. So yeah, so we do get a lot of calls. People reach out through LinkedIn that this is some sort of solution that they have, and it might help in delivering to business objectives. Yeah, and like Richa said, even I believe in writing down my learnings. We are all humans at the end of the day, and we have this habit of forgetting. So till the time we use it in practice on a frequent basis, we have to make sure that we are not losing on those small learnings that we come across on a daily basis.
Sure. Yeah, Sachin.
Yeah.
Do you have any
So
interesting way of updating yourself?
So Google Alerts is, in fact, indeed is a great way to be on top of things happening in your interest area. You just need to tell Google what your interest areas are. The other way is all these big organizations, be it Watson, Adobe, Google, Microsoft, organizations which are working in the area of AI, ML primarily. They have their newsletters and white papers where they publish case studies from their clients, whatever they are working on, latest features in their products, etc., etc. So those resources are also a good way to know what is happening in the market, and if something is relevant to you, then you can pick it up and do a secondary research.
I think all of us are very busy in our schedule and a day-to-day business as usual work. It's very important for us to be updated, and everyone has its own way to keep themselves updated. There's one question which I've just got from audiences that if you can name some of the AI and the solution which you are using in the market, so if you are open to suggest all those tools. Yeah, Ishan.
Right. Like essentially from a marketing standpoint, we use marketing automation tools. So earlier, I mean, we have used tools like Netcore and CleverTap for marketing automation and customer engagement, creating customer engagement. Those, of course, we also use CleverTap for funnel analytics. So that is one tool primarily we use very explicitly for our in our marketing journey. Other than that, I think generally all the performance marketing campaigns that we run, be it on self-serve platforms like Google, Facebook, TikTok, or your ad networks which use even these ad exchanges which use different DMPs, and then there are the DSPs on the other side. So I think primarily all those things also use AI ML as the essential source of optimization of campaigns. So I think directly or indirectly we are all a part of that AI ML user category. It's just about realizing it and utilizing it in the best possible way.
What about you, Richa?
Yeah, so we for our automation we actually use Salesforce. That's our technology stack. In addition to this, of course, the ad serving happens on multiple platforms. We do have a DV360 seat as well. So we try and do mostly everything programmatically because the way our structure is, we're typically running a lot of communication parallelly for different user sets. So we try and do as much we can do programmatically. In addition to this, we have a separate stack for our listening tool as well. It's a mix of some internal tools and external tool called OneDirect. So it's fairly, mix and match in our case.
So probably for someone who is just starting to begin experimenting with performance marketing, even AdWords uses AI now. So their campaigns for app install have started using a lot of advanced algorithm that Google has developed in the past couple of years. Again, not endorsing, but this is something that you can start your campaigns with.
Sure. Yes, Richa.
We have built an in-house tool for marketing automation. In the past, we have used Netcore Smartech. We've used responses from Oracle. We have used Adobe. But currently, we developed our own customer 360 visualization and automation platform. So we are serving most of our campaigns from that platform. Apart from that, whatever self-serve platform we use, there is a bit of AI and ML, be it Google or Facebook. So we're using those platforms as well.
Sure. Again, it's more or less we have covered that particular part. That's how do you justify cost? Because everything comes with a cost, and before we implement, obviously, it gets very difficult to derive outcome of any solution. So how do you justify that cost? I think we have covered that.
Basically, a tool has to pay for itself. If it's paying for itself, you can use any tool you want. In terms of efficiency, it's getting you that much efficiency and paying for itself, it's good. Otherwise, there is no use of using a tool. No, if it's not getting you that much, even that much efficiency, that it comes at 100% cost by revenue ratio.
No, so the point is, while we will have some case studies, we will have some white papers, few success stories, but entire dynamics change with the category, changes with your portfolio, your TG and everything. Evaluating and predicting something beforehand, it's really difficult. That's why we have options of POC, proof of concept, where we evaluate. Yeah, so test and learn is something which I believe, and in fact, Richa would agree, and everyone will agree with that.
Yeah, I think the challenge with proof of concept on these like AI/ML solutions is that it's at the end of the day, it's dependent on the data and this the size of the data, right? So usually when we do a POC, we don't expose the entire data to the tool. So it's always that chicken egg problem where on one hand you're trying to make sense out of a very limited data that you're exposing to the tool, and the tool has to try and make sense out of that, right? So it's that conundrum. But yeah, nonetheless, I think certain customer testimonials and if there are certain good case studies in the market that exist for any tool, I think that can be a good starting point to trust a tool, or else we can probably look at a smaller data set and see how it works.
And the other challenges, so like Ishan rightly said, data privacy is a challenge. The other challenge is that all these tools, they come up with a lead, a lag time. The time these tools need to learn, their algorithm needs to learn, right? And POC is usually 1 to 3 months. And by that time that POC ends, the platform is largely under the learning phase only, and there is only indicative results. You would not go, you would not reach where you want to reach. There'll be just an indicative result, and then you'll have to judge whether we are on the right path or not. So that's the challenge.
Sure. Just to summarize the entire discussion, I would I'll quote out few things. First, that emotional connect will play an important role in post-COVID situation. Uh, Learning curve is something which we need to consider while deploying any of the tool. We need to give certain time to the consoles, certain time to platforms to work for us. Uh, Personalization is something which will play a key role because with the general communication, we won't be able to achieve everything what we want. And specifically brands like KFC, emotional connect, brand love, all your softer metrics actually translate into sales. So it's not a hard KPI. We should always consider there are certain softer metrics to be valued as well. Yes, this was a very productive session for everyone. I've learned so many things from you guys, and I'm sure our audience must have learned along.